Welcome to the deep dive. You send us the sources, and we extract the crucial insights, helping you get well-informed quickly without all the overwhelm.
Right, cutting through the noise.
Exactly. So this time, the learner, you've shared a YouTube transcript. Da o Bilvavi. Rav speaks. It's from the Kas Milvavi channel.
Okay.
And our mission here is, well, to explore the speaker's really personal journey. He talks about this inner emptiness, even though he was, very religiously observant.
Yeah.
And his search for meaning.
It sounds intense and relatable, maybe.
Totally relatable. That feeling of something missing, even when things look fine on the outside, I think that hits home for a lot of people, regardless of the specific context. Okay, let's unpack this.
So the speaker kicks things off by talking about 17 or 18 years ago. It was leading up to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur.
Which are, really significant times for spiritual reflection in Judaism.
Absolutely. But what jumps out immediately is the contrast. The huge gap between what you'd expect to feel then and his actual inner state.
Right. Instead of deep spiritual connection, he describes this internal void, like something essential, the very essence of life just wasn't there for him.
And it's crucial to note, this wasn't because he wasn't trying. It wasn't lack of effort.
No, definitely not. He talks about studying Torah really intensely, 3 Sederim a day, he says.
Which is, a serious amount of study, very dedicated. Plus praying, trying hard to fulfill all the mitzvot, the commandments. He was in it.
Which just makes his confusion, his bewilderment, so much more understandable, doesn't it? He's doing all the things.
All the right things, according to his framework. Yet the result is emptiness. That's a tough spot. A painful paradox, really.
He describes the pain as almost unbearable, a deep ache.
Yeah. And so naturally, he starts looking around like, is anyone else feeling this? Am I alone here?
And at first, it seems like he was. He felt totally isolated in it. He's seeing people maybe adding, another quarter hour of ethics study for the holidays.
Sort of surface-level adjustments.
Exactly. Not wrestling with this fundamental lack that he was experiencing so intensely.
But interestingly, that feeling of isolation didn't last forever. Over time, his perspective changed.
How so?
Well, he eventually found that actually, there were many others feeling something similar. People in Israel, people abroad, all kind of searching for their inner selves, for something deeper.
He uses that image, doesn't he? People searching everywhere, east, west, north, south.
Yeah, a powerful metaphor for that universal search. But for him, back then, it was even more basic. It wasn't just where to look, but
what he was even looking for. He admits he didn't know what he wanted or what would even make him happy.
Which just shows how deep that disconnect was. It's a void so big you don't even know what shape it is,
Makes sense. And the advice he got, the standard stuff like just sit and learn more.
It just didn't touch it. Like you said earlier, reading the cookbook when you're starving, the intellectual part wasn't filling that spiritual, emotional hole.
He compares it to Pharaoh's dream interpreters. They had answers, sure, but not the ones that resonated personally, not the ones that actually solved the core problem for Pharaoh.
It's a great parallel. The advice wasn't wrong, maybe, just not right for him, for what he was going through.
He really emphasizes how hard this time was. But what gets me is his refusal to just give up. He kept feeling like his life was only just starting.
That resilience is key. It prevents him from falling into total despair, even when things feel unbearable. And it leads him to this really pivotal moment.
The prayer moment.
Yeah, standing alone, just crying out to Ribono Shel Olam, the master of the universe.
And he's careful to say, look, I'm not a prophet. Prophecy isn't happening now.
Right, he's grounding it in reality. But the plea itself is so raw, so direct. Tell me what you want.
It's that fundamental human cry for purpose, isn't
Yeah.
it? Just, what am I supposed to be doing here?
Exactly. And underneath that cry is this deep faith, this conviction that God must have a purpose for him and that somehow, someday, it would be revealed.
And the way he reaches out to others who might feel this way, I was there and I got out of there. That's incredibly powerful. So much hope in just a few words.
It really is. He mentions writing notes back then, feeling like an old person with no zest for life, but still pushing back against despair, trusting help would arrive.
Even without knowing how, that's the trust part.
And the breakthrough, when it came, wasn't intellectual. It wasn't like figuring out a puzzle.
No, he describes it as sudden, an inner realization, not something he thought his way into.
It's a shift from head knowledge to heart knowledge, like really feeling the essence of life. He mentions a specific moment during study where suddenly the reality of God and the world just hit him.
And he connects this back to his upbringing, right? Like, He knew all the text, all the concepts.
Knew them inside out, probably, but he hadn't felt them, hadn't experienced their core truth internally.
That's where he brings in the idea of the heart having a place for God, for the infinite.
Yeah. And if that place isn't filled, if that connection isn't felt, then you get that void, that restless searching without knowing what you're seeking.
And he makes this distinction. Some people maybe don't feel that lack as acutely. He almost compares them to, like, inanimate objects in that sense.
A bit harsh, maybe, but the point is about sensitivity. Others do feel it deeply, and they suffer because of it. They feel alone because others seem okay with the surface level.
They struggle to find anything that actually satisfies that deeper need. Even if they're doing all the religious things, there's this sense that the reality isn't matching the actions.
And worldly stuff, forget it. He's a clear pleasures, whether they're allowed or not. They just can't fill that specific spiritual void. The soul wants something else entirely.
So the root cause, as he came to understand it, wasn't ignorance of the principles.
No, he knew the world stands on Torah, all those foundational ideas.
But it was like knowing them in a dream, he says. Intellectually there, but not real, not felt.
Exactly. The real fulfillment, the real life, comes only when you genuinely feel that Torah is everything and that God is the source of it all. It has to move from the head to the heart.
He gives some very concrete examples of this search, doesn't he? The falafel story.
Right. Trying the super popular falafel in Jerusalem, thinking, okay, this must be what people enjoy. This must hold some kind of life.
And for him, nothing. Just falafel.
It's almost funny, but it perfectly illustrates the point about external things not hitting that internal mark. He even compares it to King Solomon trying everything under the sun.
He also mentions seeing people find life in, like honor or status, but he recognized that as false, as superficial.
And the hotel stay. Trying a vacation to see if that could provide the missing life.
Just temporary calm, he said. No real substance, no lasting fulfillment.
So his big conclusion from all this searching is pretty stark. True life isn't out there. It's internal. It comes from that genuine connection with God and Torah.
Everything else is just chasing the wind. And he stresses this is his personal story, his lived experience of searching and finding.
And where he is now, his understanding is, well, quite clear. Sure, occasional worldly things, sweets, a trip to the sea, they can offer a bit of temporary calm.
A breather, maybe.
Yeah, a breather. But the real sustained source of life, that comes only from the connection to God and Torah. It took him a long, long time to get there, though.
He even talks about another really difficult time while studying intensely at Ponevez Yeshiva.
Which is amazing, right? You'd think being at such a renowned place, immersed in study, would solve it, but no.
He still felt that lack of life, even there. It shows it's not just about the external environment or even the intensity of study alone.
He actually thought about leaving the yeshiva then. Felt completely lost again, went to Jerusalem hoping to get advice from a great scholar.
But couldn't even get to see him, which must have felt like another dead end, just heartbreaking.
Absolutely, but maybe in that disappointment, that's when the other realization clicked. If God himself says in the Torah, "For they, the commandments, are our life,"
then the life must be in there somewhere. He just had to find the way to access it, to feel it.
It wasn't about looking elsewhere, but digging deeper, right where he was. He describes making this really strong resolution then to dedicate his life to finding that life within Torah, trusting God would help.
Believing that God wants to give life and that it's accessible there.
So if you boil down his whole life search and conclusion,
it's that nothing in the material world, none of the external pursuits, offers true, lasting satisfaction. They're fleeting.
They just can't fill that core need. And his advice, coming from that deep personal struggle.
It's really about sincerity, isn't it? Crying out from the heart. Rabbono shel olam, open my heart.
Not just to understand more stuff intellectually, but to actually feel life, to have that inner connection awakened. That, he says, is where true happiness lies.
He ends with this beautiful wish, really a prayer for everyone, to have a deep heart that gets it, that life comes from connecting to God and Torah, and he asks God to open everyone's heart to feel it.
It's a very moving end to a profound journey.
So the key takeaway here, really, is this incredibly personal story. It highlights that search for inner meaning that goes way beyond just external actions, even really dedicated religious ones. The aha is needing that deep felt connection, not just knowing things.
Yeah, and what makes it so powerful is how universal that core struggle feels. Searching for purpose, for something real that nourishes you inside. That experience of, checking all the boxes but still feeling hollow, that resonates widely.
Absolutely. Which kind of leads us to a final thought for you, the learner. Beyond just understanding this speaker's journey, maybe reflect a bit on what truly nourishes your inner self. Forget the daily grind and the quick fixes for a second. What inner deep dive, maybe, do you need to consider to connect with something, well, more profound in your own life, whatever shape that might take for you?
A challenging question to leave folks with.
Something to mull over. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.